everyone, and welcome to Happy Hour with
I forgot my name.
with Roxy and Ruth, but we call
Yes,
it Ruth and Roxy.
yes, but sometimes I don't remember things. I was busy thinking about, hey, we're on Zoom and we need to explain that, and then I forgot my name.
That's how it goes.
Yeah,
Yes, Zoom. We agree that we kind of hate it, but we also kind of love it because we've all had to get used to Zoom. And the reason we're doing Zoom today, you might hear it in my voice. I'm a little froggy. I've been fighting a cold for the last week, basically since January started. I'm not happy about it, but I also don't want to pass it on to my friends. So we're sticking in our lane here, sticking in
yep,
my room.
yep. We're going to see how this works because I'm not sure we've done one of these. I think we might have done them before when we were doing our practice runs, but we haven't done a lot like a real one yet. So we'll
We
we'll
haven't done,
see we'll see how this works.
yeah, yeah, might be good. Might be good. It's kind of cool to see each other because we're usually sitting together,
Yeah,
so we're kind of looking sideways, talking to each other like that, but we can't actually like make eye contact really.
yeah.
And people are seeing the sides of our faces, which is now they're seeing the fronts of our faces, and maybe less faces better. And we should, always be together in a room and sitting quite far back
Right.
so that
Maybe we should get
you're tech.
masks.
Maybe we should get masks. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so what are you drinking, Roxanne?
Right now, I have a mug of Dawa, and I also have another mug that I will explain. But why don't you tell our people about Dawa?
Sure.
I'm very grateful for Dawa, by the way, because Ruth is making this because I'm kind of sick, so it's good.
Yeah. So Dawa was sort of a Kenyan version of hot toddy. Um, when I was there, I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and our tracker and our guide immediately were like Dawa, and of course I didn't know what that was, so it was like, uh-oh. And what it is, it's a mixture of cinnamon and cloves and lemon or citrus, and honey, and I put some black tea in it, and it really is similar to a hot toddy. So I put a little bit of it's a blueberry liqueur that we got from Roots and Wings, which is a great little craft distillery in Langley. And so it's this mixture that sort of simmers for a bit, for an hour or two on the stove, and then you still leave all the things in it. So, over the next 24 hours, it will get a bit more robust. But we figured, I don't think anybody's really feels like drinking right now after the holiday season. But Dawa is a good thing. It makes you feel better and it makes you feel comforted.
It really does. Yeah, it's got that hot tea
Yeah.
with honey and lemon kind of
Hmm.
sense to it, but with a lot more spices and
Yeah.
more citrus. It's really good. It's
Yeah.
really,
And
really
we'll put the recipe up on the
good.
on the Facebook page. And
Okay.
that's the other thing. We've started a Facebook page,
Mm,
right? So we want people to come and see us. If you go to the website, which is happy hour with 3Rs.com. It's happy hour Ruth and Roxanne is what that is, or happy hour that you want to extend, depending on how you think about things. But if you go there, you can come on the Facebook page, and we've got a pretty good little growing community.
yeah. And is this an invitation only? Is this a private
Nope, they
page?
can all come on and like it. If we get trolls and challenges, we will do a group where people have to come in. But honestly, if we have problems with people, we'll be nice and kind, and we'll try to bring them into the community. But if they act out, they're off the page.
Yeah. If it's not their community and they won't be nurturing to our community, then this is not
Yeah,
the place for them, and we will see to that.
yeah. That no bullshit rule goes for people too.
Yeah. 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 It
But
does.
yep.
It
So
does.
so it's
Uh,
really cold here, Roxanne.
oh, it's really cold here too, Ruth. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe the wind that's blowing between my house and your house. It's
Yeah.
unreal. Let me tell you about it. I had my other mic plugged in for a little while, and it was picking up all the sound of the wind outside my window. And it's wild. And I
It is.
woke up last night with the
Oh,
sound. Oh, I can hear it again like that.
yeah.
And my husband woke up too, and it sounded like somebody had taken a bucket full of ice crystals and thrown it against our window.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like just regular wind. It was like this huge one gust, and then it seemed to be over. But yeah, it's pretty dramatic
It's
out
like
there.
the it's like the big bad wolf coming to blow your house down. right? Like
and
that's really what it sounds like. And every time, so you guys will probably hear scruffy bark because every time it blows, scruffy barks because he thinks it's something.
yeah, because
Which
it sounds like
it
something. And
does.
we live in a forest, right? So it very well could be that there's limbs coming down, trees and whole trees coming down. They took that one big tree down by the end of
Yeah.
our lane
Thank
because it
goodness
would
they
have
took
come
it
down
down. It would have come
when they
down with this.
it was huge, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always trees coming down, and that is part and parcel of living where we live, which we love, but this is the price.
Of,
So
of living in the country, that's true. Well, in talking about how cold it is here, that's kind of what our first topic leads into, right? Where it's that conversation of it's really cold here, and my mind goes to I want to live somewhere warm. Now,
yes,
I've moved across Canada, but I haven't gone to live in another country, and it got us kind of talking. What makes someone move? What's the impetus to move? What's that moment, right? And I find it really interesting because I think in some areas I'm pretty courageous. I mean, I moved across the country, and the only person I knew here was my sister and her husband. Um, but I've never taken that leap to go somewhere else. I've thought about it, and last time when I was just in Kenya, in my head it was like, wow, if I was younger, I'd take a flying leap and go here. But then I have to question, would I? Because I
yeah.
didn't when I was younger.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bit like Michael Scott, talking to the guy at his temp job and saying, "Well, I would have been had a surgery in my country," and
Yeah,
he's like, "But you are in your country, and
yeah,
you're a salesman."
yeah.
Whatever.
Nope.
We all have things that we say. Well, yeah, I would have done that, but would we have? I don't know. And for me, we did the same thing. I moved, across. I've lived in central Canada for a while in Ontario, and then out here on the west coast. But that's that's a lot of mileage in there, but it's still the same country. So it's
Yeah,
still the same healthcare and the same legal and
yeah,
the same everything, currency, language, all the things are the same. There's no big
yeah,
learning curve there.
yeah,
Even though Canada has a lot of differences from coast to coast,
yeah.
it's basically, consistent. We get that. But within my family even, um, my sister just arrived, I think yesterday in Mexico for a three-month stint. That's
Nice.
their retirement dream is to spend the winter months, and they live in Saskatchewan, so the winter months are nasty there
And longer
and
than where we
longer.
are in BC.
Yeah, so she got there just in time because they're hitting the deep freeze now. So, but that's still only 3 months. So you still have this safety net to come home to. You still have your house that you maintain. Now, my sister-in-law, my brother moved to Taiwan when he was 20, about 25, 24, something like that, and lived there for 20 years and married a woman out there and had 2 kids. And then they all moved back here. So she had never, I mean, they had lived elsewhere in Asia, but
Right.
so she moved and the kids moved here to a place that is not their place of birth, right?
Hmm.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. I don't know how that adjustment is, right?
No,
Like I
but
don't
and
know what.
it would be interesting to hear if any of the happy hour crew, if our community has done it. But it would be interesting to hear. For me, it's what what was the deciding point? What was it that took it from a dream or an idea or a thought? Because we've all gone beautiful places and thought, wow, I'd like to live here.
Hmm.
And we see it opposite. I see people saying that about Vancouver all the time and Cultus
Yeah.
Lake and that kind of thing. And then when you do, what are the pros and the cons? Like I expect there's a magic to it, but especially if you go to a country where you have to learn the language,
Yeah.
to me that's an opportunity and a challenge.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. My sister has learned a lot of Spanish, which
Yeah,
is really cool.
yeah,
The one time that I went to spend some time with her during her stint out there, she's conversing with cabbies. Like she's got a good working, um, functional bit of language there, which is really neat. But Spanish is relatively easy, going from, Chinese to English or the other
yeah,
way around. Really
yeah,
hard, not the same, right?
yeah. No, and I think like one of the things that I was thinking, so So when you move, because it's one thing to go like for 3 months, my concern would always, because at one point we talked about doing something for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, but then it, depending on how long you're out of the country, benefits stop working, right? You
Mhm.
have to be careful with all of that.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, what are the things, that happen, like from your hometown or the last place you moved from? Are there things that you miss? I know for me, I'm from Ontario, and in British Columbia, we don't have Swiss chalet, and I realize Swiss chalet is not a gourmet thing, but I miss Swiss chalet. I like Swiss chalet,
You know what?
right?
We had Swiss chalet up until there was one in Abbotsford.
Yeah,
And
they a couple of years ago, they just, oops, they all
they just
disappeared.
they bamboozled. Yeah, they did. And I actually remember that we had when we lived in Ontario, we ate it. So there's something about that chicken.
Yeah,
There's something
and their
about
French
that.
fries.
And their French fries. Yeah, it's true. It's really true. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, what are the things that you would take for granted that
And then
you
you miss that, right?
and
You
you
know what I mean? Then,
when you never expect it, right?
yeah,
You don't know that's coming. Like I remember when we moved, when we were first in Ontario, we moved there. It was summer, I think. We were there for 3 years, and I had come from Saskatchewan at that time, where it's very dry, right?
yeah,
Moved to Ontario in the summer, and I remember slipping my sandals on in the morning, and they felt wet because the humidity in
right,
that part, like you're down by the Great Lakes, right? And
right,
it is unbelievably humid,
yeah,
which that is not. Saskatchewan is
right.
dry and arid. It's a
It's
sunny,
soggy.
sunny
Yeah,
desert, and Ontario is wet. And then coming from Ontario then to British Columbia, where we settled, it's it's a moderate rainforest here, temperate rainforest, I think it's called, right?
yeah,
Here. So it's got more humidity than Saskatchewan, but less than Ontario. So it's
right.
kind of a nice,
Yeah.
but I don't slide out of my shoes here at least. So that's something.
But it would be interesting to hear from, if people are out there, and maybe they can comment on the Facebook page or something, or send us, right? Send us some info on at happy hour 3rs.com, because it would be really interesting to talk about it in the next episode about what people are thinking and that kind of thing, because it's like, what, like, was it a job that took you there? I know lots of like people when they retire will go to Mexico, or some go to Portugal or that kind of thing, because cost of living plus sunshine,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But it would be really interesting, given neither one of us have done it in another country, to hear the experiences,
Mm-hmm.
because certainly in this weather, I can see how it would be appealing.
Yeah. I would have, for me, I would have a really hard time giving up a Canadian residence entirely because I'm more of a homebody. And I think that's generally true of me compared to you. Like you're much more footloose. You've for sure traveled more. I'm very much an attacher. I'm kind of a limpet. When I find my thing, I'm like I
Yeah,
suck onto it and I stay there. And that has, other things like hoarding. Because I'm like, ooh, I like my thing. I mean, look at
right.
my office. This is my things make me feel happy surrounded by
Yeah,
stuff. But
but
attachment to stuff that way, it would be hard for me to leave entirely and not know that I could come back.
yeah, and I think that's it, is having the understanding of, my sister lived in Mexico for 10 years, but they knew they would come back
Right.
eventually,
Right.
right? Kind of. But she also lived in Texas because her husband was the bureau chief for McLean's, and
Okay.
that was where he was posted for the southern sort of US kind of thing. And I'm trying to think of where else they lived, but I think it's really interesting. And I think when you're younger, and if you get transferred for work, you kind of have a bit of a social life set up for you because you're going to a workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, we did at one point look at Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville resorts. They have them so you could buy a house there. And then
Oh,
we didn't end up doing it. Like there's 3 or 4, like there's North Carolina and South Carolina and several in Florida. And we didn't end up doing it. But there you'd have a built-in community, because if you're going to live in Margaritaville, you're clearly like-minded Jimmy Buffett fans,
totally.
right? But yeah, it would be interesting to hear from people, because it is I think it's something that crosses most people's minds, but only a small percentage actually take the leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a huge decision. My middle daughter has a friend who met a guy who was here in Canada from Australia, I believe it was. Um, for a work thing. He was here temporarily, and they got together. They fell in love, and then he went back to Australia, and they had to figure out what to do about that. And they ended up. I mean, he came back. They had a family, and he's here now. But that's the thing. So as a mother, I'm like, oh, don't do any overseas trips that are like that, because you're going to fall in love with somebody, and then you have to decide, and one of you has to leave, right?
Make a choice, right?
And you always say, oh, that's what phones are for, that's what planes are for, it's okay, like in today's world we can easily stay connected, and you can, but you cannot bounce your grandkid on your knee over Zoom. You just can't. It's not the same. So there's a loss to consider there. So far, if my kids are listening, stay in Vancouver. They're happy with this. This is good.
But I think that's, as a mom and a grandmom, you immediately thought of that. And it's funny because when we talk about it, I think of either a young person who gets transferred and goes alone, or I think of people coming up on retirement who go. And the other part, like that middle part, because I don't have kids, that didn't even occur to me, that how does it affect other people? Right?
Yeah. Well, and it shouldn't. Like at that stage in your life, when you're a young person setting out, you really shouldn't. I mean, if you've got a mom like me in the background saying, but maybe, like that's fine, just ignore me, because I shouldn't be part of that decision-making thing. This is I mean, when I moved to Ontario, I'm sure my parents were very sad, and I don't know, because I wasn't paying attention to that. This is my life, this is my choice, this is what I have to do. And that's how it should be.
Right.
You should not be, taking everyone else's wishes into consideration. These are big decisions, and you have to do what's right for you.
But I think that's a good question. If there's people out in the community too, is if you moved, what did you take into consideration in your life? Because I think the people, if you're leaving around, say retirement age is anywhere from 50 up for most people. And it's like, so you decide to do that. What did you think about family life? If you have kids, if you have parents, it's I moved out here, and my dad was in Ontario, and that made it challenging in the later years, right? Because as his health declined. So it's just an interesting, and it's such a big topic that it would be really interesting. Maybe we'll have to find somebody to come on as a guest and talk about it, right? That would be really interesting, I think.
Yeah. If anybody's interested, wants to volunteer, let us know.
Yep. You can find our email on the website, and you can send us a message, or you can talk to us on Facebook, because we have all these channels now. I'm so excited.
We're getting there. Ruth has done a lot of work to do this. She is the techno genius right now.
Well, as techno
couldn't
genius,
get a mic plugged in.
I was going to say, with techno genius, my mic didn't work last session, and I couldn't get my mic working today. It just wasn't working. But I think that's part of it, is we're learning, and we've had some really great feedback on the Facebook page and directly to us, and people are being really supportive that we're learning as we go, and the tech side of it. I mean, this is sort of like a crash course in video editing and in video casting and doing all the things. But I also think I really appreciate the fact that I when I do something and I send it to you, we have a conversation about what's good enough, because the other flip side to that is perfection is the enemy of getting things done,
of completion, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
But
I mean, I go through this every time I finish a book. It's never finished, it's never good enough. In fact, sometimes it's horrible, and afterwards I'm like, oh, I can't believe that's published. But you know what, it's the only way that anything ever gets done, is to say, this is as good as I can make it now, with the skills that I have now. So that's what this podcast is this is as good as my voice is today, given that I have a virus, and my voice will probably disappear before the end of the thing. But you know what, that's it. Like, we're doing it anyway, because otherwise we would keep waiting and keep waiting. And it's just like that conversation we had walking the dogs the other day. I'm like, hey, I ordered some new underwear, because you know what, I don't want to wear my crappy underwear. Why is it that we have good underwear and like every day? You know what? Every day is good. Just wear good underwear all the time. Use the good dishes. Do the like what makes you happy, do it now, because whatever.
Also, listen to the crappy podcast, because we will get better. But I think that's exactly it, is we are learning, and we've had some interesting feedback, and And a couple people have said, wow, the episodes are really long. And right now
What does that mean? What does
it's
that mean?
yeah, but to me it's purposeful, because some of the podcasts I listen to are like 30 minutes, and that's like every book I've read and every online workshop I've done right now about podcasts say 30 minutes, because that's a commute, right? Except,
Sure.
first of all, it's easy to pause us or turn us off because we're actually talking about nothing. But the other side is, it wrinkles me when it's only 30 minutes and I'm in the middle of like cooking dinner, and then I got to find another podcast.
Not everybody commutes. And you
Yeah.
know what? A lot of our audience probably doesn't commute. Probably a lot of our audience is a little bit outside of the typical listener, podcast listener. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
You
well,
guys
it'd be interesting to
tell us.
find that out, right? But
Yeah.
I also think like we're not necessarily. I mean, I'd be happy if people, when this is put up and it's 4 in the afternoon and they grab a drink and sit down, absolutely sit with us and focus. That's really great. But I also expect people are going to be puttering around their kitchen making dinner, or
Yeah.
they're going to be doing other things, and this is on in the background. Um, I was laughing the other day because I listened to Big Bang Theory episodes to go to sleep sometimes, and they had Fun with Flags on, and that was a video podcast that they did.
I love fun with flags. I remember it.
And then one of the characters in the show was, somebody asked him about Fun with Flags, and he's like, I use it to go to sleep, and I'm okay if people use this to go to sleep too.
100%. I do that. I have listened to audiobooks for years, and if it started off with conference workshops on, writing craft and all that. And I'm like, oh, maybe if I listen to it while I'm falling asleep, it will get in there somehow, and I'll learn while I'm sleeping, and then I'll wake up and be super smart, all that, whatever. All it is really to drown out the sound of my husband snoring next to me. But it became a habit, and now I listen to something all the time. And it's better if I'm listening to something that is either really familiar, like a book that I know and love really,
Yeah,
really well. There's no surprises there.
yeah,
Or if it's something that is kind of comforting, but not super full of conflict or information that I need to be writing down right now.
yeah.
So you won't get a lot of conflict here, and you won't necessarily get a lot of information that you want to write down here. But you might find that we're kind of just fun and easy and comforting to hang out with. And if that's the case, whatever, cook your dinner, if fall asleep, you can go to bed with Ruth and Roxy. Absolutely you can. And this is how.
but and it is a little bit like we're sort of like the best friends that you imagine, because first of all, we show up at your house, but you can be in your pajamas or whatever, right? You don't have to feed us. You don't have we bring our own wine, so you don't have to worry about that. So we're kind of like really good
Oh,
virtual
if you're
guests.
talking about her, she brings food too,
Oh,
everywhere
yeah,
she goes.
that's fair. Food
No.
is, but the other thing is, like, I think that's just it. And I think, in 6 months or so, we'll ask for feedback about what people want. And I know one of the feedback pieces we had was, that we're breaking the fourth wall because we talk to our community. And I understand we are breaking the rule, right? But this is who we are. So let's see how it works, because we're only going to do this as long as it's fun. And the point is, if we're having fun and people want to join us, right, we're not trying to frame a podcast that's about marketing, or a podcast specifically about something where, as much as I would like this to be a popular podcast and that people find community in it, it's we're trying to sort out who we are. And certainly if everybody came back and said, quit talking to us, it'd be like, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't talk to them so much. Or maybe we would just go against the grain because we're kind of contrary.
Well, the thing is, we're doing this anyway, right? Like we get today's, I mean, on Friday at 4 or 5 o'clock, usually we get together and we sit down and we chat and we have a glass of wine. So we're doing it anyway.
Yes.
And so this is just it. Like, why would we have to change that? People
Yeah.
want to join us. If they don't, like our thing, don't stop by our backyard. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's it, because it's a little bit like we both work out in Supernatural, which is a virtual reality workout. And I was on the Facebook page today, and there's a lot of new people because it's January and lots of people get into exercise in January. And there's somebody complaining about not being able to mute the coach's voice. And I had just got out of the headset, and I find the coaches, I mean, first of all, you get all sorts of tips about their, the technique and how to work out better and not hurt yourself and all this stuff. But they're also really they're really positive and supportive and encouraging. And I mean, you know, how often as a grown-up does somebody say, I'm proud of you, right? I'm proud of you for showing up
Wow.
for yourself. Or they say, hey, way to go, athlete. I can promise you I have there have been many times in my life I've been called athlete. So that's something I get from it. So I actually posted, and I don't often post in that Facebook group, but I actually posted how important the coaches are to me,
Hmm.
about all of those things. And I didn't say this, but I wanted to, and it was like, you know, if you don't like the coaches, the fact is the whole Supernatural is based on new music and these great coaches, right? All the time. Like we get all this new music and we get these new workouts with these great coaches. And it's like, maybe this isn't the workout for you,
That's right. Yeah.
right? Is,
If
and
it's
it
not
doesn't mean
work,
it's bad. It just
no,
means it's
that's
not
right.
a fit.
Exactly. And if it's not a fit, that's 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 completely fine, but don't come in and expect to change it.
Yeah.
Right. So, so like if you write in and say, you know what, Roxanne, man, she really needs to see somebody about those, like put on some makeup. You know what? This is
No.
me. I'm really sorry about that,
Yeah.
but this is what it is, right? So if it's not the thing that works for you, that's 100% fine.
Also, we're not sorry.
Also not sorry. You know what? Like this is, yeah.
But
So
that's just it. But I think but there's a life lesson in there about you know, and I know This Is Us is this great TV series, but it's kind of, it's taken this long in life for me to get here and go, this is who I am. If
mhm,
I'm not for you, that's okay. That's not on me. That's just not a fit,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I do think we'll find our people, and certainly we can refine things if people are like, hey, could you add a thing about, I don't know, puzzles? You would happily do that because you're the puzzle queen,
I like puzzles.
right? But you know, like there are things that will be within our little bucket of ability
Mhm,
that we can do or want to do. And then
mhm.
there'll be other things where it's like, you know what, that's not really us. And you know, given that we're doing this, I would encourage someone who has a lot of ideas how we can do this better, do your own, because honestly, if we can do it, people can do
Oh,
it.
absolutely, absolutely. If this inspires you to say, "Ooh, you know what? I see what they're doing, and they have completely lost the plot here, but this is what they should be doing." Go and do it yourself.
Yeah.
My gosh, this has been fun. And,
Yeah.
and when I say, starting all of this has been 70% of the heavy lifting is happening over there. But the magic happened because of the chemistry between us, I think. But I've also learned going along because I need to, pull at least some of my weight. And it is really exciting to learn a new thing. It's Brene Brown says we can do hard things, and we complain bitterly about them most of the time. But wow, at the end of learning something new, you're like, oh wow, I didn't know that I could make a little trailer with Canva or with
Yeah.
iMovie or with Facebook Reels. And now I have, look at this thing that I did. I mean, look at
Right.
our website. Our website is awesome, and it's just really empowering to learn something new and to do it. So you guys go fill your boots. If you have something that you think that you could say and do it, give it a try.
Yeah.
Wow, why not?
What and that's just it. And I think that's just it. And sometimes you get to certain ages and it's like you feel like maybe your learning is over. And for me, I mean, I just, it's like, what, I can do this. And especially if you get in it and it's like, oh, look, I can do this. And I'm learning and I'm getting better every time and you see results. And I think sometimes that's the whole, it's like all of a sudden it's like the Wild West, right? It's like we're learning from other podcasts, we're learning between ourselves of who have strengths in certain areas, so we're working all that out. But it is a really interesting thing, and I hope this inspires people to, whether it's this or it's writing or it's singing or doing something. I hope it inspires people to look at something that they're kind of interested in and take a little bit of a step forward.
Okay, I'm going to give a little shout out now to one of my favorite fans, one of my readers who reads everything of mine, called Will. His name is William Harris. William, hi. If you're listening, and I think you probably are. William is he's such an inspiration to me because he went back to school. And William, you can write in and correct me where I'm wrong because I'm almost certain to be wrong somewhere. He went back to school and got his degree in, I
Wow,
think it was history, after retirement. Like that's kind of a big deal, right?
that's
To
impressive.
go back to school as an adult, that it's a scary thing. And I just think, and he took his time doing it. He didn't go back as a full-time student, but like, wow,
Yeah.
that's such a, I don't see myself doing that, but I also don't, I'm not ruling that something like that out,
Right.
because when you
But
love to learn, and
yeah,
learning is one of those things that feeds your brain and it leads to other learning. So the more, every time you crack your brain open to something new, it allows it to open up, and something else new
yeah,
shows up.
there's
And you're like,
magic in
oh,
there. But and you wouldn't have said 2 years ago that you would have done a video podcast, right?
probably not, probably not. And I will tell you this, my husband has been telling me for years, like probably going on decades. He's like, you know what, you should get into editing. And I was, he would tell me this, every time I'm in one of my, oh, writing books is so hard modes, and he'd be like, well, why don't you become an editor? And I'm like, well, I don't want to read someone else's crappy stuff. I have a hard enough time with my own crappy stuff. And and I don't want to work for a publishing house, whatever. And then I actually just looked into it, found a program where I could learn to be an editor. And I'm like, hey, honey, I'm going to be an editor. And he's like, and he was right. And it was a great thing for me because I like learning new things. And
Yeah.
then, I learn things in this side, things fall out on that side, but oh well.
No, but it's right. It's one of those, it's one of those things, and it doesn't have to be a big new thing. I think it's it could be learning a new dish. It could be learning a new language. It could be like there's something that you could do a little piece of to move you closer to a dream, right?
Mhm, mhm. Hey, did I hear that you're learning Swahili?
I am trying to learn Swahili.
Okay. Do you know what the word Owodunny means?
Oh, Dunny? No.
Owodunny.
Is it a swear word?
No.
O
Owodunni.
W O? No.
Owodunny. I think that's right.
What's it mean?
This will make you laugh. I'm pretty sure it's Swahili, but when I was pregnant with our first daughter, we were going through baby names and baby name books, and this was, in the time before we had online stuff, so we were actually looking at books, and the books had all these different names in different languages, and Owodunni means it is good to have money in Swahili, I believe. And we're
God.
like, ooh, let's name our kid that. I like that name.
Oh,
It is
that's
good to
funny.
have money. It's the one word that I know.
I was
And it's
trying to look
probably
it up, but I'll look it up. I'll look it up and I'll post it on Facebook. But yes.
okay.
But see, I guess, and that's part of it. So I was fascinated in Kenya, eavesdropping on conversations from the people that, especially at the lodges. So they live in rural areas, and every tribe has their sort of version of things. But but it was like, wow, I'm kind of obsessed with Kenya right now. And it was like, that would be really cool, even for a few lessons to see how I'm doing, because I've stayed in contact with a few of our guides and trackers. And it would be like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to say something to them? Right.
Yeah.
And just do that. And I'm terrible. I mean, I'm terrible with languages, unfortunately. So we'll see how far it goes. But yeah, it's like at this moment, it's front and center for me, besides, the podcast and
Okay,
work.
so do you know any Italian?
Well, I went to an Italian Portuguese high school, so I know swear words.
Oh, well, that's good. Probably not useful
Not so
for
good. Yeah. No, but that I
I
was thinking, so that's actually a good segue. So we do these simple Tuesdays, and the simple
mhm.
Tuesdays we're doing right now are all based on, because we're the four of us are going to Italy and Greece, and it's based on it. So I made mushroom risotto this last Tuesday, and I put in a fact about Rome, which was Trevi Fountain.
Oh, oh, that's why you put that in my pocket.
Yes, because we're supposed to do dinners, are supposed to be,
Yes,
we give
okay,
an interesting
okay.
fact, and it's the Trevi Fountain makes like 1.2 million euros a year or something, because you're supposed to throw 3 coins in to mean
Okay,
you'll come back, right?
that's so funny. We walk the dogs together at night, although I think you might be on your own tonight. It's too cold for me.
Yeah,
Um, and she comes running out of the house and she has this piece of paper. She's
because I
like,
forgot to put it on the dinner tray.
here's your here's your Italy tip. I think you called it your Italy tip. And I folded it up, put it in my pocket, and then when I got home, I pulled it out, and I'm like, this is the Trevi Fountain. and it's circled here, this gelato.
Oh, Paul put his favorite gelato place on there, right beside the Trevi
Why
Fountain.
did she, why did, why? Why do we have this? I don't know. I put it in my file, in my travel file, and I will make, my plan for next Tuesday is my night. And I'm going to make avgo limono soup, chicken and lemon, Greek chicken and lemon soup, and possibly some bread to go with it. Not sure. Something to go with it. But that and so I will have a Greek tip for you.
Right. See? And you'll remember how to put it actually on the tray. So, you know, there's context for it.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yep. Okay, tell me about the books you're reading, because you're reading a lot of books.
Oh, well, I always have more than one book on the go because I read on my Kindle and I read actual print books, and I sometimes am reading fiction and nonfiction at the same time. So fiction wise, at night, I'm reading a book by Harlan Coben, one of the best thriller writers out there. It's called The Match. And this is about a man who is found as a feral child in the woods. Like, I mean, what a hook, right?
Yeah.
Like Mowgli or Tarzan or whatever. That's just right up my alley. And then he grows up, he gets civilized, grows up, and then he eventually finds his genetic father. So the series I'm writing right now is all about people connecting with their genetic roots. So the whole DNA family connection thing is right in the top of my brain. I love it. And it's in the top of a lot of people's brains right now. So I'm reading that one at night, and then I'm listening to, and I'm also reading a nonfiction book called The Body Keeps the Score. This is backwards, but gives you an idea of the cover at least. Yeah. And that one is about, what's the subtitle say here? It's brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. So it's about what trauma, and that's big T trauma, little t trauma, whatever causes your cortisol levels to rise in your body for whatever reason, how that affects your body. And I'm thinking as I'm listening to it on audio. It's a very good narrator. And as I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is why people get sick after Christmas, women in particular. And I knew as I was going through December, I'm like, I am doing too much. I am pushing hard right now. And there were reasons, and Christmas was great. But the whole time I'm like, I'm holding back the dam of the virus load that's going to come landing on me because the little kids are petri dishes, and I want to be around them. I want to be around my little kids, which means this is going to happen. So anyway, as soon as I could let go and say, oh, good, everything's done now, I can relax. Boom.
Yep, you were sick.
Kind of bricks. So,
but and it has, like, when you think about it, because I know a few people that deal with sort of long-term illness and who are really sort of challenged by their past. Right? Like I know a few people that have chronic illnesses that I don't know anything about their past, but I do know a few, and I know one acquaintance in particular that is a really angry person, and he's always sick, right? He's always got something, and I think, and this is absolutely sort of a layperson's approach, but it's like that anger has to do something to you, right? Yeah. And if you have an underlying condition anyway, it's got to, I mean, all those responses, stress responses in your body, it causes inflammation, it causes all sorts of stuff. You don't eat properly. It just exacerbates everything. And so that's one of the things, because my husband, Paul, who is like really positive and nice and easygoing, is like so frustrated by things in traffic. And he gets so, like, he's like, oh, and it's just like, you know what you're doing to your body with that, with letting that emotion go in. And in 5 minutes, it's not going to matter that guy didn't let you in. Right? But it's an interesting connection. And I think it's one that it's really, and I think medical professionals are paying more attention to it, right? The whole sort of the holistic approach to stuff. But it's an interesting connection to think about what the manifestation of trauma and how it comes out with how you deal with it and how that feeds back in, right? But yeah,
It's
it's fascinating.
easier. I think for a lot of people, it's easier to be physically sick than it is to be mentally or emotionally sick. Physically sick, you can say, my stomach hurts, but you can't say, my stomach hurts because I'm afraid, because
Right.
I'm afraid of rejection, or I'm afraid of whatever, or this is
Right.
reminding me of a time when I felt like this, or something
Right.
something that's a bit more nebulous and difficult to define, and traditional medical science can't help you with that part of it.
Yeah.
All they can do is say, your stomach hurts, we don't see any organic reason for that, sucks to be you,
Yeah,
you know?
which also doesn't it that's not to say that, like, their stomach does hurt.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of it is we don't give enough credit to, when it used to be, what was the phrase? Hypochondriac,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
Yeah,
and and the thing is, just because there's not a physical manifestation of why you're in pain doesn't mean there's not pain.
that's right. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of the challenge. And we were never taught to connect the two. Like the whole mind body connection only happened when I was in my adult years, where you started to pay attention. And you can see it, you can see people that go home to a life of conflict,
Yeah.
and they often get sick, and sometimes diseases, right? Because their whole body is always in fight or flight,
Yeah.
right? And that's just it. And I think that's where, like, meditation and all the things that have come in are helping people. But we need to do more as society to connect these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's such a switch, a mindset switch. It's certainly, and when I was young, that was definitely not something that was thought of. Like it, the physical body was one thing, your
Yeah.
emotions and your mind were a separate thing. Over here, the two were not connected.
No.
And that intuitively, that never made sense to me intuitively. And I mean, when my children were born, I was I was kind of overwhelmed with the idea that what I had grown up believing, in that the flesh is bad, the flesh is innately sinful. I'm looking at this newborn creature thinking, but you're not. You're actually perfect.
Right.
And my job is to just not mess you up as you grow up, and keep that connection between who you are as a physical being and who you are as an emotional, mental, spiritual being.
Yeah.
Have that be as united as possible. My kids are listening, they're laughing right now. I'm like, yeah, mom, you tried, you did a good
You
job,
did
good job.
you Hey, all anybody can do is try, but I think it's a good point, because I think part of it was because I am a highly sensitive person, right? Like I take things in. What it made me a really good reporter, because I could pick up on things. Even I picked up more on what they didn't say than what they did say, right? And so, but as a kid, it was always like, why are you so sensitive? Why aren't you doing this? You have to come on, you can just shake it off. And there are things you do need
Stop
to shake
crying,
off.
you're too sensitive,
Yeah.
stop is what I
Right.
got all
But
the time.
right, but that's just it. Like, and I think back then they didn't realize, right? And as we get towards it, and I'm glad there's bigger discussions about mental health and stuff, because I think it lets all of us feel like there's some understanding and equity out there, because we aren't all the same. Now we're very clear about introverts. We're very clear about you know, diversity. We're neurodiversity, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's a really important thing, because not everybody's made out of that hardy, Little House on the Prairie stock, right?
Mhm.
And I don't think they were made out of that stock, but they
No,
had to do it because nobody knew,
yeah,
right? So you felt you kept all that in you because it was socially unacceptable. And
yeah,
now it's not. Now it's okay. Like, and I do say, we here in this community, we have a lot of really lovely friends who
mhm,
are very social, and I
mhm.
really appreciate it and admire it. And it's not me. After me, I have 2 social engagements in a week. I'm done for 2 weeks,
2 back
right?
to back is a problem.
Yeah,
2
right.
weeks,
But
yeah,
but now I can say to people, you know what? I'd love to come, but you know what? As an introvert, I need some time.
mhm,
And
yeah,
people are more understanding, even in the last 5 years,
yeah.
about this kind of thing. And I think that's a big leap forward. We're not as far as we could be, but I think we're doing better, because I
Well,
think you should get to be who you are.
it's interesting that you say 5 years, because 5 years encompasses the COVID years, right? And for the COVID
Very
lockdown
interesting.
was devastating for so many people for so many reasons. The people that had less trouble with it, I think, were the introverts.
Yeah.
Because we were there, the socially sanctioned events that we are as introverts are sometimes uncomfortable with. Oh, come out and join us for this thing. Oh, you want to do this? Well, don't you want to do that? This is going to be a good time. There is among society a sense that going out and being with people is always a good thing. You
Yep.
always want to do this. You always want to have fun and laugh and talk to people. And with introverts, it's like, yes, I want that for this amount of time. And then for this amount of time, I will go home and I will process it and I will make sense of that. I will breathe, I will recover, and then I will
Yep.
be ready again for my
Yep.
chunk of extroversion.
Yep.
But during COVID, the extroverts suffered greatly because
Oh
they
yeah.
couldn't anymore. And the introverts are like, oh, thank God, I don't have to feel pressured to do that thing anymore that I never really wanted to do in the first place.
Yeah,
You know?
and it was all set up so that because we did lots of sort of Zoom cocktail hours and stuff, and we did them when we moved here with you guys and things, but it's a limited thing. You don't have to get up and get ready and go somewhere. You don't have to
Nope.
go there and then you're there for a few hours. It's like, hey, you want to have a drink and you're on for an hour and a half, and then it's like, okay, see ya, and it's over. And
Yeah.
that's just for an introvert. None of that. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff about COVID that was upsetting. That
Yeah.
was not one of the things.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was an interesting, I think, eye opener for some people about how social situations work, how they
Yeah.
because there's lots of people that I think maybe don't think about things the way you and I do, like that whole evaluation of what works in my life, why
Yeah.
does this work and why doesn't this work? Not everybody think
No.
not everyone thinks that way. Some people just live their life. I don't
Yeah.
know what that means. I don't know how that works because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to think about that. Oh, now I have to, I'll never sleep again.
Yeah.
Because
Well, we have you and I have a very good mutual friend who her reaction was like, I don't feel anxiety. And it's like, I'm in the house
what?
alone and I have anxiety,
I
right?
know. What does that mean? I had a friend years ago who told me once, and this was when I was probably still suffering pretty bad. I think I was probably diagnosed by then, postpartum depression, that I I knew something was wrong. But anyway,
Right.
and by the time, I was sort of coming out of that, I think was when I was friends with this person, and she said never she didn't understand what depression was. She'd never experienced that.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that must be wonderful to wake up every morning knowing that it's
Yeah.
going to be a great day. You just want to get out of bed and you want to do things and you feel good
Yeah.
about yourself and you're not anxious about anything. What is that like?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's that's pretty remarkable. But not everyone is the same, right? And people who are highly sensitive
Yeah.
tend to experience more of the lows that come with the highs and
Yeah.
the things that other people are able to like, whatever, it was no big deal.
Yeah.
We're like, but I can't.
No, but the
It's
other
hard.
thing is I think when you grow up and that isn't sort of a part of the common understanding. And then when you realize, because one of the things I do now, and I mean, my anxiety, I mean, I've done tapping. I've really worked on it because I have this committee in my mind. And for a while they were this, like, it was all just like, don't do that. You're gonna die. Why are you traveling? What's going on? It was awful. But I got them under control. I've sent them on vacation and and but now I speak out more about it's like I'll say to people, oh, you know what? Today's a challenging day. I'm feeling a bit anxious, or I'm feeling a little this, or I've been reading these political books and I'm not reading them for a while because they were truly depressing me. And I try to use those words to destigmatize them
Mhm.
because I people will look at me and when I'm out, I I'm an extroverted introvert in some situations. And I try really hard to explain that in fact, I'm this jumbled mess inside, but that's okay. Right. But
Mhm.
I try really hard to share and I share things about anxiety. Like sometimes I share so much that poor Paul gets friends going, is Ruth okay? Right. But mostly I'm sharing it because it's like, hey, I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate enough that I'm in a situation where I feel confident enough to speak out about it. Right. I can acknowledge I have it.
I have that has been that's another one of the things that I think drew you and I to each other because I have that's been kind of one of my mantras throughout my life as well, is that I feel extremely lucky to have had the support and the opportunities that I have to discover who I am, discover
Yeah,
how I work the way that I work, and to find the help that I need to be my best self.
right.
Because we talked about therapy in our
Yep,
last
yep,
podcast.
yep,
I have a husband who's very supportive of that, who participates with me, and 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 I have a therapist who is extremely empathetic and understanding and wise and who is trustworthy. And so when I meet people and I sense that there is something, and I when I it has happened time and time again in my life that it is the troubled people or it's the people with who also have a hard time in a group, maybe, who will
yep,
find me in a group,
right.
get me into a corner and download their entire life history on me.
Yeah,
And afterwards, we'll go home and Ray will say, like, why were you in the corner talking to that person? I'm like, well, you know what? This was like, this was a fill in the blank of weirdness, right? Of something that's unusual or maybe off the typical straight and narrow that this
yeah.
person experienced. And they wanted to talk to me about it. And I love people's stories. I love nothing more than people's stories. Also, in a social situation, that means I don't have to go out and talk to
Well,
someone else.
and I do think you and I have some little signal on our, there's some little thing there that people see it. But the other thing is, I
Yes.
also think because we both are, a bit introverted and I know for me, I'm a bit socially awkward. I try really hard to engage with people and look them in the eye. And I think part of it allows somebody who might also be feeling that to come over. And then we ask questions because
Yeah.
both of us are curious. So and I have to admit, I've heard lots of great stories. And when I interviewed, I think I told you this, I interviewed Jimmy Buffett years ago, and he said to me, don't talk to the popular person. Go to the bar, the guy that's sitting there at 2 in the afternoon with a double Jack Daniels and with a beer chaser, and talk to that person because they've got the stories, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
but the other side I do have to say is there's a fine line between really interesting and you're scaring me,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
and
Uh,
and
I
and it's a really fine line.
I know that I have been the person who has scared other people. I remember a few times where people were like wide-eyed looking at me like, um,
I, I need to hear these stories. Maybe
how you
not on
doing
tape.
here? Like, yeah, exactly, right? Like, and I mean, boundaries is a thing that I still struggle with because sometimes I'm like, oh, you asked me a question, I'm gonna tell you, man, you are gonna be sorry you asked. And then it's like, oh, actually, you just revealed way too much about your life.
Yeah,
Um, but but yeah, that idea though of creating a sense of we're all awkward and weird at times, and we all have stories that are fascinating and also delicate and fragile and need to be handled with care.
yeah,
And the more we go out saying, "Oh, yes, I wake up looking like this because I'm
yeah,
just perfect every," that
yeah.
doesn't that doesn't help the rest of us to
No.
feel like, like life's okay.
Well,
You
it's kind of like some of the big sort of incredibly beautiful Hollywood stars, and more
know?
women are doing it, doing the no makeup thing,
Oh,
or
yeah.
showing you what they look like and showing you when they're in the grocery store and they've got, sloppy sweats on and doing this. And I
Yeah,
think that's a really great trend and movement that we're seeing,
yeah,
that so you don't think that everybody's perfect, because that's what social media shows you is, I mean, it's
yeah.
funny because tonight we're doing this, and then we'll get off and there won't be much to do. And we're going to have like canned spaghetti on toast for dinner, Roxanne. And I'm going to put that on Facebook because I like to cook, and I usually put up the things that work because,
Ooh,
right? But the other side of that is people are always like, "Oh my God, you're such," and it's like I don't show you my fails because first of all, it's not interesting, but maybe I should because
that's a really interesting okay, so canned spaghetti on toast, first of all, that's disgusting. My husband grew up with that too. I'm like, "Okay, I can get behind beans on
yeah,
toast."
Paul's going to have beans on toast.
There's no but, but you would somehow turn that into you would add a sprig of parsley, and you would put it on the right plate, and you know what? Do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely do. That's cool. And I like last night we had, here's my thing that I do when, time is tight and no one is really interested. It's scrambled eggs with spinach and goat cheese. And it's just all scrambled together.
Yeah.
You feel like you've had a salad. So then afterwards you can eat a bowl of chips,
Yeah.
But you've had protein, it's all good. But
Also, honestly, that's a pretty, like, compared to spaghetti on toast, that's a pretty good dinner.
well, you know what? Like I did get 3 kids to adulthood. I had to feed them something healthy. So they ate a lot of
Yep.
spinach growing up.
Speaking of deliciousness, I'm now on to the other drink that you made.
Oh,
Do you want to explain to people
I
what
can
this is?
explain. Yes. So I'm double fisting, as they say. I got the Dawa from Ruth in one mug, and then I made vin brulee, which is, according to my son-in-law, who made it for us over Christmas. It is Italian, it's Italian mulled wine, basically. So mulled wine is a mixture of wine and spices and a sweetener of some kind, honey or brown sugar usually. Um, what else? Citrus. This one has orange juice in it and honey and orange peel. And you warm it over a flame. Try not to burn all the alcohol off of it, and it's just
It
delicious.
is delicious.
Yeah.
And we'll put that recipe up, right, too, on Facebook tomorrow
Mhm.
when we launch this. When we put this one up, we'll put it up. It will be on the Facebook page, which
Yeah.
is,
Levi's was better. Levi's is always better. Whatever he makes at our
yeah.
place is like, oh, that's good. I could do that. And then I do it. I'm like, not quite the same.
No,
But
but this is, you haven't
this,
made this a lot either. It takes time to
yeah,
find your thing. I think it's delicious. Now, I haven't had his, but I really think it's delicious.
it's well, and you know what? It's a good way. Like you and I we bonded over wine, and we've gone on wine tasting trips, and we have a lot of fun with that. But I I don't really do the dry January thing per se because I don't know, I don't like being told what to do. But but uh but I haven't had any. This is the first alcohol I've had all
Hmm.
month. And this is, I think, probably the alcohol's all burned off of it.
Yeah, but it's
But
very comforting.
it's very comforting. Yeah. And it's a nice, it's so freaking cold out there that this is
Yeah.
very, very soothing and very delightful.
Yeah, and it leads into what we're also going to talk about is we have an upcoming trip. So we're going to post about some of those things and we're going to sort of post about, some helpful tips, I think, because we've been really good, the four of us, in making decisions about tours and places to go and all the things. But it's also, we're doing a bunch of research, and I know lots of people don't get as involved in the planning as we might. And I think some tips about travel and what to look for and what not, because you can see a bad review and it doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
Like just some of that stuff, and we'll talk a little bit about where we're going, what we're doing. I have lots of articles for the blog coming up about Kenya and Paris and stuff. I'm writing a couple of articles for like publications out there. So I have to finish those first because I have to write those and give them the photos because then they own those photos.
Right.
So I have to do that first before I do a lot of sharing. But I am writing lots of stuff that we will be posting soon about travel, which is and food, which is exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah, it's going to be fun. I know I haven't thought, it's so funny because going to Greece has been a bucket list thing for me since I saw Shirley Valentine. And then Shirley Valentine and then the Traveling Pants series
Right.
or book,
Yeah.
and then it was Mamma Mia. I think Mamma Mia was in Greece as well.
Yep.
The movie anyway. And it's just been a thing. But we're flying into Rome, and we've got 4 days in Rome, and then at the end of the cruise we're back in Italy again, right?
Yeah.
So it's Italy as much as it is Greece.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think mostly because it's a cruise. So I think it's mostly because you could only get to so many places in Greece by cruise, right?
right.
Whereas Italy, it feels like there's a lot, it's more accessible by the water, but yeah, but it's also interesting to plan things out. And we will have to talk because Sicily, we've got to talk about a food tour. But our husbands were going to play golf, and it turns out getting to the golf thing is very expensive. So we have to have another little meeting about what Sicily means to us.
They need to rethink that. I mean,
Yeah,
like really, what are they going to say? Oh, I'm tired of eating.
yeah,
No, come on the food tour.
yeah,
I mean, you and I did I think the first food tour we ever did together was in Kelowna, the very
Yep.
first trip we did to Kelowna.
Yeah.
And it was you found it. I'm like, food tour? Oh, okay, whatever. In Kelowna, like how this is where we live. Like how exciting could that
Yeah.
be? It was fantastic. We learned
Yeah.
all sorts of history about the city and the communities that built the city, where this place was when this happened, and how this restaurant came to be. It was so great. And going to another, everybody eats. Everybody eats. And when you go to a place that you've never been to before, to find out how they eat, what is an average person, like
Yeah.
you finished work and you want to go out and you want to have a bite to eat with your friends, where do you go?
Yeah.
That is what the place is.
Yeah.
That's that when you go there and you find that place, that's how you get a feel for this new place that
That's
you've
at
got.
this, that's just the social heart. And even in Rome, we're going back to a restaurant that the name it will escape me, but I'll post it, that we went to before, and we found it from a food tour. And it's amazing. And we had a great experience there. So we're hoping to take you and Ray back there, right? Like, and that's just it. You make this connection that
Mm,
that turns into something more than just a meal, right?
yeah, exactly. It's a memory,
Yeah.
especially if you get a connection to the person who's doing the tour, or
Yeah.
or you meet someone who's on the tour. And we did that one wine tour we were on, where we shared the bus with these lovely people.
Yes.
You meet people all the time when you're
They're on
traveling.
my Facebook page.
Oh
Both
yeah,
those
yeah,
both those lovely women are on my
yeah.
Facebook page.
I
Yep.
think I think I'm friends with them too. Okay, so for me, until I kind of met you, it's like, oh, we're traveling. All right, like, okay, this is me on my trip. Oh, I don't know you. I don't want to talk to you because you're a little you're frightened. I'm a feared Ruth. But now I'm like, oh no, you actually can meet really cool people here. Now, you go too far and pick up stalkers, you might be a little close to that side. I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet.
Well, according to our friend Della, who went on the Paris and Kenya trip with us, I collect strays, and I took that as a badge of honor because but you know what? It's really funny because I just texted our tracker and our guide from the Masamari area in Kenya, because I was making dawa, and they were the ones when I had a cough, they were like, "Oh, you need dawa," right? So I texted them, but I texted them around 2 o'clock when I was making it, and I sent a picture, and then I realized that's midnight there, and it was like,
Oh,
"Oops."
ew.
But you stay in connection, and it doesn't mean necessarily that your paths will ever even cross again. But you
Mhm,
had this experience, and especially if you had an experience where it feels like you're like-minded,
mhm.
it's really nice. Like random, I still get random, and Facebook especially, and Instagram, but random things that where people are like, "Hey, I saw this, and when you were out here with us, I thought of you." Like one of the fellows that we were at a different lodge, he's on Instagram, and he was putting up things about rhinos, and he tagged me because he was like, "Hey, remember we were talking about this? Here's what the rhino's doing." Right. And it's really nice just to have these little bits of threads running to all these different
Mhm.
hearts all over the world, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're going to be best friends or go stay at
Oh,
their house,
yeah.
but there's this magical connection, which also, in my little opinion, if more people could have that, there would be less racism and less bigotry
Oh
and
my
less
goodness.
crap in the world, right?
To discover that somebody who is so different from you in every possible way, maybe skin color, maybe family circumstances, maybe where they
Yeah.
live, how they live, what they do, if
Their
everything is,
language, but that's just it. Everything is,
yeah,
we live
it,
in, like, they get up in the morning and they go out looking for lions. I get up in the morning and I go read newspapers, right? You
yeah,
know, it's
somebody
like we have a
coffee.
different life.
Totally, totally. But if you find something that connects you with that person, oh my goodness, then
And
suddenly it's
it
like
but then you have this invisible thread
totally.
between my heart and theirs. And again, it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean any real relationship will come out of it. But what it means is there is more about us that's the same than is different.
Yeah.
And it just reminds you how amazing the world is, because we learn from our differences, and
Mhm.
how we find our differences is we find, like we connected with the trackers and the guides, because we're all enthralled with the animals. Like I
Mhm.
one of the most magical things for me in Kenya was being out there, and we're all excited about seeing whatever animal it was. You know, let's say it was a lion, and then looking over, and the tracker and the guide who see this every day are as stinking delighted as us, right? And they're even more delighted because we're delighted,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's the thing. And you know, like we've said this before, on paper, you and I have way more differences than we have similarities, right?
Yep.
Way more differences. You would have terrified me. If we had met in high school, I would have been like, oh, she's a scary one. I'm gonna go hide behind my book over here. Um, and yet we have the same feeling about dogs. We have the same feeling
Yep.
about books. We have the same feeling about, you know, oh, that little bird on the, let's like get it off into,
Yeah, let's save them.
yeah, like we have at the base, our hearts are the same, even
But
though,
but that's just it. And what
which
makes
else?
it interesting is we come to it from different angles.
Yeah. So then you learn something, you're like, oh, that's another way of doing things. And I like learning new things.
Well, and new people, like the new perspectives that they bring, you know, like it's one of those, but also like the fact that when I didn't feel that great because I was coughing, they immediately were like, how can I help fix you? Right?
Mhm.
How can I make you feel better?
Yeah.
That's a basic human thing that you would do if somebody was uncomfortable. It's like somebody's uncomfortable. It's like, can I get you a tea? Can I feed you? Can I do something with you? Right? Like it's just compassion and care.
Mhm.
And if we all could do that a little bit more outside of our little comfort zones,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It would be pretty amazing. Okay, I think we have to do our grateful soon because we're coming up to 70 minutes.
Oh, I guess that's they're gonna cut us off soon.
Well, they won't, because but I have to edit this for 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So,
Oh yeah. Okay. It sucks
and
to be.
also it's hot in here. I think Paul turned the furnace up because it's cold out, and it's like I feel like I'm in the Bahamas.
I've got, see these
Yeah.
flushed pink cheeks right
Yep.
now. Same here. Ray's been so cold. He turned up the, although in this room in the house, as soon as I close the door, well, I probably have the vent closed in here too because of my plants, but it gets really cold. It gets really cold in here. As soon as you open the door, it's fine, but I got to
Yeah.
keep it closed because of him. He's a
Right.
noisy boy. But
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So what are you
So
grateful
what
for?
are you grateful for this week?
Me? What am I grateful for? Oh God. I'm grateful that I'm getting over this bug. And I gotta say, it's the 11th today. So
Yep.
that's pretty much 11 days of
Yep.
really not feeling well. And I'm
Yep.
feeling much better today. So very
That's a
great.
big one.
Yeah, that's a big one. How
Yep.
about you?
That's a big one.
I'm also grateful I didn't pass it on to anybody as far as I know. My husband's got a bit of a sore throat, but he hasn't been,
That's
fingers
good.
crossed that, yeah. And you guys
But
didn't get
but
it.
you've been really careful, right? We haven't spent time together. You've been, I mean, partly because you were sick, but even when you were feeling better, everybody, you
Yeah.
kept your distance. You've been,
I do
um,
masking when I go out anywhere. I
yeah,
haven't done much, but like nobody wants to hear that. Oof.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I'm certainly grateful we have a trip to look forward to that we're planning because that makes everything really exciting. I think I think I'm also just really grateful that we're we're so fortunate we have a warm house. It's really cold here. And so it always makes me think of the people who are experiencing
Yeah.
homelessness and the people that are out there that are challenged, right? And it's one of those, we Paul and I and Roxanne, you know this, but we do when we walk in the morning, we do 5 things we're grateful for and something we appreciate about the other person and something that we think we did a good job of, right? And I'm always saying I'm grateful we're going to go home and the house will be warm. And
Yeah.
as soon as I say that, it sort of it 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 smacks me how privileged and fortunate we are, right?
Yeah.
Because I saw a meme the other day and it was like, if you had, and I had this, if you were fortunate enough as an adult to have moved back home when things were hard,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Then that's privilege because
Yeah.
many people experiencing homelessness are because they didn't have a safety net,
Nowhere else to
right?
go.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the luxury of a warm house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a big one.
It is a big one. And I know that's a little, at the end of it, it's a little depressing. So I will also say I'm very grateful for Scruffy who walks out the door, our little dog who walks out the door and he's like, nope, nope, not going. Nope, having none of this now.
We had one when we were growing up. My sister had a little dog who was a terrier something crop, Pomeranian size. She weighed like 8 pounds and had like sleek coated like a greyhound, right? And this little dog, it's Saskatchewan, all right? She would go out, I swear, she would be walking on one foot. She would have all three lifted at a time. Didn't want to touch the snow, and she would go out just fast enough to pee and then back inside the house. Man, that dog could pee so fast.
Yeah. No,
Unbelievable.
that's just it. Well, I think this is it for this happy hour. So what we want from life is more happy hours
And
and
way
less
less bullshit.
bullshit. Right? And so hopefully you guys let us know what you think about the episode, and we will talk to you soon.